Hello everyone, I'm sitting downstairs on a beautiful Sunday afternoon and hoping that all you have by now downloaded AutoCAD Civil 3D, hopefully 11, as I'm trying to get my inventor working here. I'm going to go through here in 15 minutes how one goes about starting essentially a what would be called a sandbox project. And so I've begun already as I started file new. I found a drawing or a template around, in this case an older one from the DOT that I've got laid out here. I've drafted some layers, I put them on layer 0, but immediately I want to go ahead and make some new layers, and if I'm going to make those, I'm going to make those on the Z layer. So I'm looking around for that. I'm going to go here to make a new layer, underscore Z underscore flat, and then Z underscore elevation. Now you notice a lot of things came in off of whatever was my current layer when I made those, but I've got those two. I'm going to put the elevation stuff at a color that I can see as I'm doing it. Hit OK and close that. So I've drafted to start here a whole section, and what I would tell you is, as a rule, all those flat work, I'm going to explode, X for explode. At very least, you'd like to have offset through, at very least, you'd like to have the quarter section lines on there through the midpoint. Even if this doesn't exist, it's a great idea to have some concept and set up 2D lines that you know what's going on in your drawing with regard to center lines and etc. Intersection of that, I'm going to try again through the midpoint of that. Each of these now should be on my, and why the Z's on the bottom, on the Z flat elevation. This is going to give me something in white to draft to when I want to go directly there. Now I'm going to take all of these things. I'm going to left click, spacebar, 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 and I would do a move here, but I'm going to point out the problem with doing, and it is a useful thing to grab something and doing a move, it doesn't make a previous selection set. So instead, I'm going to do move, cross, and I want to do a copy, so I'm going to do a copy, cross. I'm going to go from the end point here, but once again I'm going to say at 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. I do that so I can now say this, change previous property layer Z underscore elevation, and that does not exist. However, I can do change previous, and it still remembers, so as I go and learn whatever my layer was, Z underscore elev, I can still do it. Change previous property layer Z underscore ELEV. Which means as I go here, V.1, 1, 1, I now have something at elevation and something not. So those, it would have turned out to be, are at 1,000. So I grabbed the wrong ones actually. And so I can grab each of these. So I want the white on top. I'm going to change all those to at elevation. And if I now do V.1, 0, 0, I'll be able to grab all those here and learn to kind of manage that way. You could do it also. Alright, so I've got some flat and some at 3D. V point 0, 0, 1, or the command plan. I've done that just at this point so I can show you how quickly it is to make a tin that you may or may not get a chance to do, but right now I'm going to freeze off that layer that is the flat. Freeze that, and so I'm left only looking at the 3D information. So if I now say break and break, and then say fillet radius 0, same thing here. Now I'm left with a set of lines that are all at 1,000 feet, and what I'm going to do is, considering I'm going to add a 7% hill here, 7% at around 25 stations is around 150 feet, so I'm going to grab this one, grab this one, grab this one, grab this one, pick that up, move it around like that, and then say at 0, 0, 150. So I've just essentially added 150 feet of grade to that. I'm going to actually break out at the very ends, B-R-E-A-K. The very ends of this here, I'm going to break that, going out. I'm going to break that, going out. And I'm going to break this, going out. And I'm going to break this, going out. I now have a set of contour lines or 3D lines I can make into a surface. I'll go ahead and do that quickly, but realizing I don't really need to do that, and sometimes I won't even have that ability. I have those lines around, so let me just jump ahead to what I said before in terms of learning to make alignments by first thinking out what you want and then drafting over the top. Maybe a little bit different than a lot of the videos that were done, but you want to go ahead and learn how to actually think things out with polylines, but then not actually use the make a alignment from objects. So I can go back to my layers here, and at this point you start to realize how important it is to start going in using the layers 2 in the layer manager. So I'm going to go ahead into my layers, go down to all my filters, down to all my Z's. I'm actually going to turn the flat back on. I'm going to turn off the Z elevation one, and now I'm back to that kind of basic 2D view. And that would be now when I would say something like L-man, new, I'm going to call this something like a flat design state. Something that you'll remember and start organizing. Hit close. At this point, you can make your alignments out of anything you care. I'm just going to offset this through. Offset 660 feet. This one here. I'm going to offset this one 660 here. I'm going to offset this one 660 here. And I'm going to just start doing some fillets. Fillet radius 0. I'm going to offset 660. And I'm going to offset 660. Fillet radius 0. Now I've got something I can essentially could do this to p-edit, select your polyline, but we want to be aware of what that direction of that first polyline is before we did it. So we would list it. And it goes 90 degrees up, so we would want to take that, left click, spacebar, rotate 180, and now you could do your p-edit. Yes, J for join, this is what you're used to doing, I'll tell you that's a reasonable thing to do and nothing really wrong with it, but you start to lose the ability to change things. So instead now I'm going to actually go to change my 2D drafting to the Civil 3D. See the prospector come up. I'm going to now go about that point of saying, okay, home, I want to make an alignment. And I'm going to use the alignment creation tools, not the alignment from objects. So I'm going to use the alignment creation tools. I'm going to hit a pause here for 1 second. Okay. We are at this point, we're making an alignment. We have to remember to right away start naming these things. Do not get too far down the road. And this is November, something like the 7th. Main Street center line. Giving it your starting station. And again, you might, depending on where you're going, I want you to think about going out to those other, to the outside right away, not to the center line as I've done here, and which would mean that not only you're drafting in your section lines, you're actually drafting in your right-of-way lines. So I can do that, can I, at this point in time? I can say, boy, I want that starting station to be 10 something else, or I can go back here and think about, I'm going to offset 33 and offset this 33. I can zoom out to here, extend, screw that, push that one out. I'm going to offset 33, extend, screw that. And I might be doing wrong by going north to south on this one because it is more of a north to south row, but now I've got something I can actually make an alignment of. And I'm going to begin my alignment not at 10 plus 0, 0, but at 9 plus 67. So watch how that's done. Again, you make your alignment creation tools. You give it a name. Keeping track somehow, depending how many projects you have, with a numbering system, main, street, center line. Beginning it, if you're smart, at least for now, you want to go ahead and do it not 10 plus 0, 0, but 9, 67, and 33 would be 10 plus 0, 0. You might give it what you want to do for your label set and your style, etc. Go ahead and hit OK. And now you come to this point where you're going to use the tools. So we're going to go ahead and do fixed line 2 points, shift right click from the end point there. Next point is the end point there. We want to just learn to use the at, very useful in this point. It means the last point to your next point, the end point there. Zoom out again, zoom back in. It's asking me starting point each time at, and then your ending point, the end point there. Once again, your starting point at, and your end point is the end, and then your starting point is at, and the end is the end. That now is going to be the longest alignment you'll ever have along that typical alignment. You've put everything in. At this point you might recognize that your scaling was wrong. You might want to put those down to 1 to 40, and you've got what you need to do. Finally, we can finish this 15 minutes out by going to here, learning that we're going to go between two entities in a radius more often than not. I'm going to grab that one and that one, grab the first entity, and I'm going to grab the first entity and the second entity, and you see it might be grabbing part of the layering problem. So now at this point is when you would go ahead and turn off your layer with the Z. So we'll pick that up in the next one. I'll finish one out, and then we'll go out and take some pictures at the skate park. Cool engineering happening. It's not just corridor work, it's also bowl work. Thanks for listening.